morning. You all look lovely from here. I can't remember you all look lovely from here. Could you just turn to your neighbor? Some of you have talked, some of you haven't talked. But just turn to the person. In another life, I would be a pastor. So this is that turn to your neighbor. Turn to the person next to you. Tell them something about them. Probably their hair is really beautiful. And sure you see their smile. If you're sitting next to a guy, you see a guy and you come up, if you're sitting next to a lady whose natural hair is just giving, tell her your hair is giving. And try to smile. Yeah, something like that. More like that. We get to know each other as we warm up the atmosphere. Okay. So as she sets up the presentation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to Dr. David Odhiambo for organizing such a tremendous and wonderful conference for us to talk. I believe when you talk, you get stirred up. And once you get stirred up, you get the way forward. I'd also love to thank and just appreciate Dr. Bosiri. She really set the foundation for what we're talking about today. Sindio, she did, right? Plus she also represented, I mean, she did not come to joke. Have you seen the effort she put on her hair, and her lovely dress? She was rocking those things over here. I want to appreciate her. And of course, Collins. Collins is an amazing person. I've known him. We school, by the fun fact, tulisoma pamoja in campus. So when he left over to me. And many times, we don't even know, we just find ourselves in the same, talking about the same thing. And he's an SHCD expert, so we also appreciate him for the amazing work he's doing with Binti Shupavu. Kwanzia leo nakuita Binti Shupavu. So, I was thinking about my presentation and I thought, wait, those lectures I used to see in campus studio mimi leo. So I will try to, yeah. So when you see the words that too many focus on, but eye-to-eye contact so that we don't get lost in that. So today I'm going to talk about the holistic approach to closing the SRHR service access gap in local communities. We want to look at youth-led interventions and solutions for success. So basically, there are gaps that we have when we want to access SRHR services. So how can we as young people, most of us are practicing, some of us are practicing doctors, most of us are healthcare workers in training, right? So how then can we contribute meaningfully to ensuring that this works? So divided the whole thing into 4 things. We'll do a brief introduction. We look at sustainable youth-led SRHR interventions, what are they? Then we look at how youth-led organizations are funnels to care pathways for sustainability. And we look at young healthcare workers as practice transformation agents for sustainable SRHR solutions. So, yes. So we'll start off with 4 interesting facts, or something I just found very interesting to lighten up the mood. A shocking number of young people are more likely to consult Instagram, influencers, and Dr. Google for sexual health advice, and not healthcare professionals. I mean, even you, if there is something, you will go to Google, right? Because who needs a healthcare degree? Why would you go to Moi University and become and study fast, then go again back to school? And study again to become a professional. So who needs a healthcare degree when you have a filter for that? And today we have ChatGPT. So why would a young person go and go to, for example, you guys, or go to a qualified healthcare professional for that? But you know, the thing is that Google does not have a medical degree. So these influencers that we look to, or this Dr. Google or ChatGPT does not really cover what we need. So that's something we need to have in mind as we continue. Then studies show that a significant number of awkward conversations about sexual health between parents and teens happen via text. We just can't sit and tell our moms, Mom, but we just even can't say, I have a girlfriend. Not even say tunafanya introduction, not na hiyo introduction, just say, Mom, I'm going out on a date. Guys, how do you tell your other guys you made a date? You're taking out a girl. Is it something that we openly share? Is it something that we openly share? Now, this is a conversation, so you can say yes or no, or is it something that we openly talk about? Is it something that you're comfortable? Okay. As we get to know each other, next, please. The other thing, Siri, where do babies come from? With the rise of virtual assistants and artificial intelligence, which is currently where we are at, we can only imagine the day like your teenager, your child, or your younger sister will start asking Siri or Alexa for the lowdown on reproductive health. You can imagine your kid asking Siri, hey Siri, explain puberty in 30 seconds or less. How much information will Siri or Cortana or Alexa or Google Assistant give? So this is where we are at. This is really where we are at. Next, please. Then the other thing is, one of the things I do is we go to high schools and talk to adolescents about sexual and reproductive health. So one of the things we what is it called? We correct myths and misconceptions. So one of them, something that I found really interesting that has really stuck to me today, they said you cannot get pregnant when you engage in sex while standing, right? Can you get pregnant when you engage in sex while standing? Yes, we are healthcare workers and healthcare workers in training, and we know better, right? But you see, this child is taught physics. So what this boy explained is that the boy took a bottle that has water, he opened the bottle, then the bottle was full. So he pressed on the bottle. See, when you apply pressure, the water will come out. So where does the water go to? Does the water go up and stay up, or does the water go up and go down? It goes up and goes down, right? So gravity, then, like, you cannot mess with the laws of physics. Yes, there is biology, but how dare you mess with the laws of physics? And one of the things that Dr. Bosire talked about was even our curriculum. Does it train us to be responsive people when we come out here, or is it just to be A+ material KCSE and go to med school or engineering school? So yeah, that was my respect experience. This is the part where we will focus on the person speaking and not this. When you look at a holistic approach in SRHR access, we're looking at something, an all-encompassing strategy that addresses various aspects in medical, not just in medical services. We're looking at the social aspect, we're looking at the cultural aspect, and the economic aspects. We are moving from taking SRHR as a healthcare issue. SRHR is a societal issue. In the past, we used to have healthcare people talk about SRHR, but nowadays, even engineers, you find in their bios and LinkedIn, SRHR advocate, which is truly right, Cindy? Yeah. So when you talk about sustainable interventions, why are we talking about sustainability? What kind of interventions are these? These are things that reduce disparities. We don't want Noel in Nairobi to be able to access this service for January until March. Ukienda kwa clinic after March, they tell you, hakuna dawa or something like that. And someone else in another place is able to access them, maybe periodically and whatnot. So we want to look at how we're able to sustain them so that we're able to have them come rain, come sunshine, come this regime, come the other regime. The other thing that is very important for us as we talk about SRHR is cultural appropriateness. As medical practitioners, as healthcare people in practice, in training, we are trained the biology and how the body works, and we have accurate facts. But how do we communicate this to our patients? How do you communicate this to the community? So we have to be very cultural appropriate. So when you talk about closing the access gaps, we again want to reduce or eliminate the disparity in access to these services. Let everyone everywhere be in a position where they're able to access these services without having to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for that. And of course, youth-led interventions, which Dr. Bosire has talked about, Collins has talked about, have, the highlight is meaningful involvement and leadership of young people. And where do we involve them? Is it, umeenda ukainvitiwa, like when the prince was, the king was here, some people were invited, you go take nice selfies, pale Instagram, unatesa, but like, was your involvement really meaningful? If someone, you were like, chilling, okay, we don't say chilling, we have more defined ways of posting. Had a sit down with King Charles and we talked about na. But is that really what happened? So meaningful youth engagement from the designing to the implementation and of course in the advocacy of these solutions. So sustainable youth-led, we want to look at sustainable youth-led SRHR interventions. And next slide please. When I was looking at this sustainable youth-led SRHR interventions, what marker will say that this intervention is sustainable? And my mind went to the UHC approach, where you have access without having to go through financial constraints for that. So for us to say that SRHR services are sustainable, they have to be accessible, acceptable, equitable, appropriate, and effective. Next slide, which explains all this. Under accessibility, a young person or an adolescent should be able to access SRHR services when and where they need them, without having to undergo financial hardship. When you talk about accessible, acceptable, this is where we talk about culturally competent. Because one of the things that we strive to do, because we're passionate youth advocates, and we want to advocate for what is right, we have the facts, yes. But when you go into a society and you start telling them that you have been doing the wrong thing all your life, these people will look at you like, who do you think you are? You were born the other day and you now want to tell us what to do. So cultural competence is very important if at all these interventions are going to be acceptable, therefore sustainable. Then equitable, fair, what I was talking about, fair and just opportunity to achieve your full health potential, whether you're in Turkana, Mandera, or Nairobi. And of course, appropriate, effective for the different youth subpopulations. Because also under the youth, one of the challenges that we have, even with policy making and whatnot, and meaningful youth engagement, we just cluster young people together. We assume Noel is a youth, you're a youth, we are all youth, and we cluster together. We don't understand that we have different needs. We have subpopulations of the young people. So that's something very important if you are to design interventions that are sustainable. So the other thing that we are going to look at is youth-led organizations as funnels to care pathways for sustainability. So many words used up over there and all that. But what we're trying to say is how can young people, how can you as a healthcare profession in training create channels through which we're able to create sustainable SRHR solutions. One is advocacy and awareness. When you have the information, when you are empowered, when you empower someone, then they're able to make the right decision. And the thing is that as young people were able to connect, we had a success story of Mombasa County. It did not work because they went to Mars and brought the soil from Mars. It worked because they allowed the young people to take the lead with that. So advocacy and awareness, allowing the young people to take lead is very important. Community engagement. One thing that is also very personal to me is being a global leader with local solutions. There's so much that we will read from WHO, you will read from UNFPA, you will read from all these organizations, Bill and Melinda Gates, USAID, and all these donor organizations. It is very important for us as young people to train ourselves, to educate ourselves, to have a global perspective, but implement localized solutions that work. Because while WHO may say this, when you bring it to Kenya, what works in Nairobi will not work for Turkana. So it's really a challenge for us to be global leaders, but act locally. Global leaders with local solutions. tailor it to fit specific cultural, social, and economic factors that influence SRHR. When you meet a patient or someone, her needs will be probably different to the other person. So if you don't have the global leader with a local perspective, you know that this works for her, this works for her, and ideally we will not be creating the impact that we want. Next slide. The other thing is education and prevention. Education and advocacy go hand in hand. When you have information, you are empowered. When you create tools and resources for young people to use, then they're able to empower themselves on information on SRHR. And when people are empowered, they're able to make the right decisions. You won't have to tell them you need to attend a youth-friendly center because they already have the information. And of course, access to services. We might sit here and jump from, my mom says, you might jump from here to the roof and sing hallelujah. But if we don't have access to services, then all these things we're talking is just, what they call boardroom propaganda and whatnot. So we don't want to be people who just propagate boardroom. At least I don't want to be that person. So access to these services, actually, the real access to the services is one of the ways in which we facilitate sustainable SRHR intervention. And of course, peer-to-peer counseling, ensuring young people receive the support they need, providing the support other young people need is very key. Next slide. So we have talked about what are sustainable SRHR solutions. We've talked about how can we as young people promote this or facilitate this. So now we specifically focus on how can we as young healthcare workers in training be able to practice transformational change. One thing we have to understand that wherever you sit, wherever you stand, in your position as a sister, in your position as a mother, as a friend, you wield a certain kind or type of power. So as healthcare profession, you have the power to ensure someone dies or someone is saved. You have the power to ensure someone makes the right informed decision or someone just goes astray. So that will really inform how we even engage on social media, because some of us just say things on social media for the sake of it. But if you understand whatever goes out, the power that it carries will be able to be responsible for that. So understanding that you carry so much power, and since kitambo, when you just say you're a daktari, whether does not matter whoever daktari you are, people in communities usually hold you there. If you understand the power that you carry, then you're able to dispense it in a manner that ensures there's transformational change in terms of SRHR interventions in society. The other thing is advocacy and education. We said we are moving from Dr. Google. We're trying to move from I am having this and this, what should I do? And now ChatGPT is even almost writing scientific papers and whatnot. So we're moving from that. But if we are able to educate ourselves, if you're able to, when you educate yourself, then you're able to advocate. But if you don't educate yourself, then you'll be two blind people leading each other. The more the reason to educate ourselves, then do the advocacy. Technology and innovation. We are in that space, artificial intelligence, telehealth. I was just reading a fact that currently there are over 318,000 health applications, and more are still coming up. So I was just thinking, if you're able to use these mobile applications, online platforms, use them effectively, and most of us are on that, most of the young people and adolescents, are on that space, then we'll be able to create impact. But if we as healthcare professionals shy away from that, I've noticed there's this thing about healthcare professionals and people who really have the knowledge and technical know-how. they usually like want to step back. They want to see the other people do the wrong thing. Then they now say, no, that is not how it is done. Actual facts are this and this. But let us be those people, because we already know the facts. Let us be those people who dispense the facts. Let us not wait for an influencer somewhere. Could you SMS so and so about those reproductive health things? We've had, she talked about yoni pearls, and some of us are just are just watching. Let us be those people who give the right. Let us leverage technology and innovation to give out the right information. The other thing is cultural competence and sensitivity. Very important. One of the things I learned about the anti-female genital mutilation stroke cutting campaign, before they used to go to communities and tell them you're doing, they used to like invade communities. Well, they didn't do physical assault and whatnot, but the language with which they used, the way they came, they were telling that what are you doing? You're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time with the wrong people. But when they started, when they communicated it better, they were able to even go to the elderly men who propagate this. So cultural competence and sensitivity is very important. Next slide. Peer-to-peer approaches that were in-depthly talked about, evidence-based actions. It's important for us to talk with facts. We just don't say things for the sake of it. Statistics show that 20%, and there is no that 20%. That is spreading misinformation, malinformation, which is not the way to go. So as young people, we need to participate in research, be those people who have the data. Because even when they go for policy making sessions and whatnot, they will use evidence-based information to do that. How do we get there? How do we get to sustainable SRHR interventions? Partnerships and collaborations. You cannot do it alone. You might be the brightest person on earth, but if you don't hold the hands of someone there, the other person there, you won't be able to do it. And forming communities of practice where you're able to share experiences, find best practices, and move forward. The other thing is tech and innovation. Utilizing the digital platforms, the tools of today, digital communication and the advocacy tools of today. So utilizing that will be very vital in ensuring we get there. Then of course monitoring the impact of interventions and ensuring adaptability to the changing needs. And capacity building. One of the things and a meaningful youth engagement that we need to understand is that young people you have the responsibility. Yes, the policy makers owe us a seat at the table, but our responsibility is to educate ourselves. If we don't educate ourselves, then we will go and we will just blankly stare at them and will not be able to make meaningful impact. So capacity building, educate yourself, tailor whatever intervention you're doing to meet the community needs. Something that really drives me, Mother Teresa said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone upon the waters and create a ripple effect of change. If you know Mother Teresa, you know the work that she did in Calcutta and beyond. So you might be thinking talking to a friend is just, oh, me, I'm just talking to a friend. But being you doing what you're doing is really creating that ripple effect. So in conclusion, what do we need to do? What next? Get involved in SRHR initiatives. You are healthcare workers, you have the health behind it. Participate. Maybe through volunteering, advocacy, support youth-led programs. Educate yourself. I cannot underscore the importance of that. Educate yourself. When you have time, read about this statistic and find out the implications of this. Sorry, I haven't. Closing the SRHR service gap is a collective responsibility. We might sit here and think those ones in the youth-friendly centers are the ones who have the responsibility. But it is also your responsibility. If you don't work, if you don't carry your responsibility, then those in the youth-friendly centers will not be doing much to ensure that this happens. And lastly, laughter is the best medicine. even for SRHR. One of the ways I have learned is through dispelling myths, misconceptions with young people. So, believe it or not, when you're starting a conversation on SRHR with young people, with anyone, with your dad or mom, laughter can be an effective icebreaker when you're discussing some of these things. So, do not shy away from some good natured humor as you tackle these topics today. Thank you so much. That would be it from me.